Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping right into a pretty stark macroeconomic warning from a source aptly named Hidden Tax. We're going to break down exactly what their math says about our staggering U.S. national debt, and honestly, more importantly, what it means for your personal purchasing power. And naturally, a need that astronomical prompts a pretty chilling question. Who exactly is the involuntary buyer here? I mean, think about it. If global investors suddenly decide they've had enough and walk away, someone still gets stuck holding the bag to keep this whole system running.
Section 1. The $11 trillion problem.
So why do they need so much cash right now? The source breaks this down into two distinct buckets. First, we're refinancing old government debt. It's essentially like paying off a maxed out credit card by just opening up a brand new credit card. Second, they have to plug a massive $2 trillion spending deficit. So the vast majority of this money is literally just needed to roll over the debt they already owe. Now, the CPA behind this source material, a guy named Brian, he makes a really great point here. He urges us to completely tune out what he calls the economic theater. You know, all that daily noise and spectacle you hear about bond auctions. Instead, he says we need to look impartially at the hard math, which currently shows an undeniable $39 trillion in total national debt. Moving on to the next piece of the puzzle, the 2026 refinancing cliff. The source defines this refinancing cliff as a looming deadline that's going to hit in 2026. This is the exact moment the government gets trapped in an absolute nightmare scenario. They're going to be forced to roll over massive chunks of that $39 trillion debt. But, and here's the kicker, they'll likely have to do it at much higher borrowing costs. It's basically a mathematical bottleneck that is rushing toward us on the calendar. Which brings us to our next section, the negative feedback loop. The entire mechanism of this debt trap really hinges on one critical trigger. What if the rest of the world just stops buying our debt at a 4% interest rate? If foreign investors look at that yield and refuse to finance our debt, well, the whole system faces a very, very severe stress test. If that happens, here is the exact three-step chain reaction that follows. Step 1. Rate spike. The government has no choice but to offer higher yields just to attract reluctant lenders. Step 2. The Federal Reserve steps in to print money to manage those costs, which the source ironically calls the medicine. And finally, Step 3. All this newly printed money floods the system, fuels inflation, and ultimately siphons away your purchasing power. And that erosion of your money's value? That is exactly what the source defines as the hidden tax. Listen, this isn't a tax you go to the ballot box to vote on or some line item you see deducted from your paycheck. It's a silent wealth transfer. The Fed prints money, fuels inflation, and quietly eats away at what your dollars can actually buy. So how does this actually hit home? Well, connecting that $39 trillion macro problem to your micro reality, this feedback loop has some very direct consequences. Your mortgages get more expensive, your car loans get more expensive. But maybe the most jarring point the source makes ties right back to our earlier question about that involuntary buyer. If global investors walk away, your quote-unquote safe bank deposits and your 401ks could literally become the buyer of last resort, involuntarily absorbing all that debt by default. Let's look at the proposed resolution in our final section, building a financial fortress. So how do you avoid becoming a victim of this system? The source's explicit advice is to radically shift your strategy. They say to, quote, build your financial fortress with assets they can't print and keep the math in your favor. Since the so-called medicine for this debt trap is just printing more money, the logical defense is to move your wealth into non-printable, hard assets. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, pretty provocative thought based on the math we just looked at today. Is your financial fortress actually built to withstand the hidden tax? It's a harsh reality, definitely worth considering when you look at your own savings in the face of these massive macroeconomic numbers. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this fascinating material. Stay curious, keep an eye on the math, and we'll catch you in the next explainer.